welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and you may be wondering what our topic is about tonight, but we are going to explore so many different facets of the library. You are going to learn that it is more than just books. So, we have many wonderful guests this evening, but before you meet them, I would like to thank the crew for this evening. I would like to thank Chris Flaherty, one of the staff members here, who makes sure everything stays together, runs smoothly, and all of us volunteers know exactly what to do. So thank you, Chris. We have kind of a new crew this evening. We have Lucian Gates, Adam Templin, Nick Guerrero, and Gwyneth McNamee, who have given up their Wednesday evening to come here at BCAT and support BCAT, support the show, and support the library. So I want to thank them as well. Not last, I would also like to thank Christina Nikitas, who is normally a crew member for the show, but she helped and she coordinated and organized my guest for this evening. So I want to thank Christina as well. And last but definitely not least, I want to thank my husband Paul for staying home for Daddy Date Night. You are actually not alone tonight, so enjoy. Okay, housekeeping. Oh, one more thing. If you would like to email me with a suggestion for a future topic or a question for my guests, and you may or may not remember their email, you can always email me at talk@bcattv.org. I love getting fan mail. So, okay, housekeeping aside, welcome. We have Suzanne Russell and Jesse Angeley. Both of you are Library Trustees.
That's right.
Sounds very impressive.
Oh, it is very impressive.
So, before we get into that role, I always like to find out a little bit more about my guests. If you can share a little bit about where you grew up, how you came to the Burlington area, and then what made you want to get involved in the library as a trustee? All right, you guys get to argue.
Okay, I'll go first. My husband and I moved to Burlington about 12 years ago. We moved from Wakefield,
Okay,
mainly to be closer to both of our works. I worked at Children's Hospital in Waltham. My husband worked in Cambridge.
Okay. Ooh.
So we've been here 12 years, so we're relatively newbies to Burlington. I worked in healthcare for over 40 years and worked at Children's for 30 years. And we love libraries. I've always been an avid supporter of libraries, and that was actually one of the things I looked at before moving to Burlington was the Burlington Public Library. I was very impressed.
I guess it rated okay.
It rated very okay.
Okay.
And so therein lies my interest in becoming a trustee and wanting to be more involved with library affairs and keeping the library alive as a vibrant, public service within the community.
And encourage other people to move here because of the awesome library.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, after Jesse talks about how his background, then I want to find out exactly what a trustee does. So what's the scoop?
Yeah, so my wife and I, my family, were also newbies to Burlington, even newer than you. So we moved just before COVID.
Lucky you!
December 2019. We were living in an apartment in Waltham. We had one daughter at the time. We were expecting our second, and we did not want to be in a small apartment anymore. And so we'd been looking for a while.
And then you got stuck in a house for the longest 2 weeks of your life.
But it had a yard, and that was great. Although it was the winter, it had a yard. So yeah, we moved. Coming on 4 years now, and we now have 3 young kids.
Excellent.
So we're
the schools are awesome too, just as awesome as the library.
Yeah, our oldest just started kindergarten at Pine Glen.
Yay!
And is loving it.
We're Pine Glenners too.
Okay, so that's we were looking around for quite a while. The market was tough then, not even worse now. We were fortunate to find a house we really liked here in Burlington. This is the area was great, and we were familiar with Burlington. It was kind of very close to my work in Woburn, and my wife at the time was working in Newton, so it's pretty easy for her commute. And yeah, we're all in now. Kid in Pine Glen. I grew up in most of my life in 2 different towns, both with really great libraries that I just have very fond memories of. As a small child, the library was in I think it was like an old high school, but like a very old, like grand looking high school for the town. It had lots of different rooms and different floors, and I always thought it was very cool to like explore and all. Like a kind of a creepy-ish basement, but not too creepy.
A lot of basements are creepy,
Yeah,
so, you know.
I mean, there were books down there, but it was fun. And then we moved when I was around 8 or 9 to a town here in Massachusetts, a smaller town, and it was a very small library, and being a small town and very little to do, sort of during the winters where I lived, we spent a lot of time at the library. So libraries have a fond, a special place in my memory, and I wanted to really make sure my kids were exposed to all the great things a good library can do.
Cool. And when you were mentioning, the small town library, where I grew up, they had a couple of libraries, but there was a small, like, not really an access library, but like a tiny remote library at my end of town. You walked in there and it was just a very distinct smell of old books, which is really cool. But the title of this show is more than just books. Because, well, now, when you were younger, you probably didn't have access to smartphones, video games, virtual reality. So, okay, we'll go on to that later. What do trustees do? It's an elected position, is it not?
It is.
Okay.
And I'm actually the newest trustee on the board. I've been serving a 1-year term, which started in April of last year, which will end actually in this April, this coming April.
So you're up for re-election.
Up for re-election. And so one of 6. And I think the role of a trustee is far more than attending a monthly board meeting.
Did you know that before you ran?
Well, you kind of know it, but you don't really know it until you get yourself into the situation. Then you begin to feel the whole extent of what you've gotten yourself in for. Because it's more than, as you said, more than books. It's kind of governing things. It's kind of establishing policy, doing policy development and approval. It's doing strategy plans. It's working closely with the director.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, the board, the director reports to the board, and the director is accountable to the board.
Okay.
So the board wants to make sure that the director is doing his or her job.
Okay.
Complying with state and local rules that govern libraries in Massachusetts.
I didn't even know there were.
As well as the regulations that are imposed by the town of Burlington, because the library functions within the context of the town and the state.
Okay.
So there's all these regulations that have to be followed and complied with for, maintaining a sense of transparency and accountability.
Okay.
So there's a lot that trustees are involved with on a kind of a monthly, and even outside of the board meetings, there's a lot of other opportunities to get more information about all these regulations and rules and stuff that really impact in one way or another upon the library's operations and activities.
Wow. Now, do you have to memorize all the state and local regulations?
No, you don't have to memorize them. You just have to be aware of them and be informed so you can make good decisions about
there you go.
Things that are coming up for discussion.
Okay. Now, you said your term is 1 year.
1 year.
Now, what are the other 5 people?
So they're staggered.
They're staggered.
Okay. Are they all? No, they can't all be
1 year terms,
3.
2 years terms, and 3 year terms.
Okay.
Yeah. So we both were elected this past April.
Okay.
Spring.
I ran for a 3 year term. Sue
And
ran
I'm going to run for a 3-year term next because it's just as much work in doing for 3 years as it is for 1 year.
It's great.
I don't want to have to go through this again.
Yeah. So
when you run, you have to decide if you want it for 1 year or 3 years. It's not like whoever comes in first gets the longer term.
No,
You run for a specific time slot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought I'd test the waters by the 1 year. But you know what? You just literally get your feet wet after 1 year, and you're really kind of getting into the
when
meat
you
of the
finally
whole thing,
figure out
what you're doing.
Okay.
So hence the transition to the 3 years.
I mean, I think I find myself, I'm still learning law. So I filled a vacancy, so I was appointed
okay.
in November of 22. So I served for
finished
5 months or so.
Term?
And then you ran.
And then I ran.
Okay.
So I'm coming up on essentially about a year serving.
Out
on
of
the-
your 3-year.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's learning with every every month that goes by more about the library.
Absolutely.
And the role that,
It's a lot.
And it's more. It is. It's there's very little statutory guidance as to what library trustees
Okay.
do. We're not involved in the actual sort of day-to-day management and running of the library. We support the library director.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, the library director does participate in all of our meetings, and we are responsible for reviewing and approving all the library policies, and there are a lot of them.
Okay.
Budgets, strategic planning, which we just went through.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on the website, like just recently,
Yeah,
like within the past calendar.
We just approved the new
Like
strategic
the new
plan
one.
in September.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
but that's the culmination of a very
very long
How
one.
often do you have to
and
do
intensive
that?
every 5
I
years.
think the new
believe.
plan is what, 2025 to 2029?
Yeah.
So it goes
Okay.
over a 4-year period, and then the strategic plan basically is the way of fulfilling the library's mission in terms of breaking it down into very specific action items and who's going to be heading up the action item and when the targeted due date is.
Oh, okay.
So it's very specific, and it covers a lot of time frame over like the length of the 4-year period.
Yeah, and it was a very like a comprehensive process. I mean, it started with the library has used a consultant in the past to
Okay.
assist and facilitate the process, and a lot of the time is really gathering feedback from all the various stakeholders and interested
in the
parties.
town of Burlington,
Yeah.
which is a
Okay.
very diverse,
Yeah.
town based on the people and their needs and
Right.
whatever. So
Okay.
Including, I mean, school-age children. I
Oh,
mean, they're a really
absolutely.
important
All
constituent.
ages.
Yeah. So there's that. Then results of that were reviewed and compiled, and that went on to inform some of the the key goals in the strategic plan, of which there are 5, and it's on the library website. It could be viewed and downloaded, and it's sort of the
Yeah,
overarching.
you don't want to print it; you'd kill too many trees.
Right. It's the overarching plan, and then each year, I believe, there's an annual action plan, which will lay out exactly
Kind of
how
like
the
goals
library is
for
going
this year,
to
goals for okay.
exactly how it's going to implement
Okay.
some of the changes.
Benchmarks,
To
that's
meet
the
those
word I'm thinking
goals.
of.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So,
great
with
process
all
to
of
go through.
this administrative and policy, what are the requirements that you need to have, or the qualifications to run for a trustee? Do you have to have like a law degree, or just an interest in making the library better? Or somewhere
I don't
in between?
think there's a specific list of qualifications to my knowledge, other than the fact that you obviously would have to be passionate about library services and continuing the library as a viable entity, and willing to put in the time and effort to kind of make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be probably 18 or older,
Oh,
resident
yeah.
of Burlington,
Probably-
but that's about it.
Yeah, kind of
and then,
very
but it's running for like
basic,
any
that's true.
any
Yeah,
other office. You have
right.
to take out
Yeah,
papers,
right.
get a number of signatures.
Go around and
be
get
nominated.
signatures and.
Yep.
Do you still have to get signatures even though you're already elected, or you're already in that role?
Well,
So
when we
say
run again,
when I run again, when
You
we
gotta
run
start-
again, we have to start the process
Oh,
over again.
okay.
Yeah, so
I've had Amy on the show, and apparently I haven't paid attention. So, how often are policies like changed or adapted? You mentioned that the 5-year strategic plan that will go in place in another couple of years. So, are there like day-to-day regulations, like post-COVID? How are we going to reinvent ourselves? Do you involve, or is the board involved in any of that?
yeah, there are a lot of different policies that the library maintains, and they're also available on the website, and anyone can go down can look at them. And they're reviewed at least annually, maybe more frequently depending on if there's been a change in the law or need. Sometimes there's a legal development, and we'll say, let's take a look at the policy. Should we make an adjustment to it? Sometimes we'll have town council review the policy and advise on some changes. But yeah, I mean they're maintained at least annually, if not more frequently.
Is it more of a reactive thing, like the state will say you have to do something, or is it sometimes a proactive going, hey, there's this really cool thing that I read about, I want to see our library do it?
I would say it's probably more proactive than anything, although not to eliminate the other, but I think it's trying to kind of keep up with all the changes, cultural, socioeconomic, kind of technological changes.
Oh my gosh,
and try to keep ahead of the curve in terms of being proactive for things, because it's really hard, because the library has that challenge to kind of be on the leading edge of making services and programs available to its very diverse population.
And also stay current, because you've always seen like these memes on social media going, why are libraries still important? But they are, like the title is, more about books.
Right, absolutely.
You guys have guest speakers and technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And
it's really one of the reasons I wanted to get involved in the library. I mean, I mentioned that I wanted my kids to be able to be take advantage of a great library, and I wanted to get involved in the community. But the libraries are really at the forefront of sort of how we consume information, and they've served in my life and in this in Burlington as well, as sort of a civic meeting point. It's not just let's go get some books, but there are a lot of different services and programs. A lot of it, the e-library we have, lots of different e-books and music and movies and all these different services that the library subscribes to make available to the town. The Library of Things, you can go and take out things that are not books.
Things.
iPads. I think we're going to get a telescope. We just approved getting a telescope from this organization.
Cool.
All sorts of different things. That
we need an observatory. No. Okay. Sorry.
But to make sure that the library stays there and stays relevant.
Relevant. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Stays relevant for everyone.
And it's all free.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's not directly free, but
well,
more or less free.
But and I don't know if
it's there for the taking.
Well, you have to give it back, so it's.
But you can go to the library and you can take advantage of all of these opportunities.
Okay. I know I'm going to talk to either you or some of the guests whom everybody will meet momentarily. Our library just went fine-free a few years ago. We're not going to say how many years ago because it's going to make me feel old. Was that a decision that the trustees were involved in, or was it more of just a staff-based?
That must have happened before I came on board.
I think it was
maybe
before we were on the board.
Okay.
But yeah,
never mind.
I imagine.
But we are fine-free, by the way.
Yeah, I imagine that as with many sort of policy changes like that, Michael Wick.
I'm sure it came to the board.
Source of income.
Yeah, well, Michael Wick probably brought it to the board and said, I think this is something we should look at.
So it's kind of a collaboration.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What am I forgetting to ask you?
Well, I think one of the other important roles of a trustee is advocacy, like what we're doing tonight, in terms of really, promoting the library, its services, its relevance, asking people what we could do that make it better. And I think in general, the communication between the trustees and the director, Mike Wick, I think he's a phenomenal director, personally and professionally. He's very forward-thinking and keeps things really relevant. So there's a great relationship between the trustees and the director. And I think also is one of the responsibilities I have as a trustee is I have a relationship, I kind of represent the library trustees at the Friends of the Burlington Public Library. So I go to their board meetings and report and report back to to the board what's happening with the Friends. So it's important for us all to keep the lines of communication open.
Okay.
So I think those are some other.
Another quick question, are there term limits? Like, the president can only serve like up to 10 years?
I
I don't believe there are.
Okay.
I don't believe
So you guys could be doing this forever.
Yeah, there are some members that have been on a number of terms.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
And the longer you're on, the more you know. So.
Oh, well, exactly. Well, it takes you a full year.
Then you can't
free.
possibly leave because you know so much and you're on top of things. So.
If you were the only trustee, what would you like to see happen to the library someday? What is your dream for the Burlington Library? I'm not going to hold you to it because, like you said, there's a lot of moving pieces.
So, I mentioned it before that I'd like to see the library, continue to be this, vibrant civic hub for the community. It really is in many ways. There are so many different programs going on at the library, almost every day of the week. The meeting rooms are booked almost all the time. So it really is,
You guys just got the outside lockers for
you got the
hold hub. Okay.
Hold hubs, yeah. So you could just grab the books even though the library is closed. So I think Mike Wick has done a great job, really making sure the library is staying on top of these different services and initiatives to make sure the library is really relevant, and I want to continue that. I've got little kids, so I love the kids programming.
Oh my gosh, we loved story time when you met one of my kids. Not even able to crawl.
Yeah, story time, the play area, the toy area, which I think, so one concrete thing that I would love to see is revamping the kids' play area there, which I think is something that's
it's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Not too long ago, I think.
Yep, and new toys are being donated and all the time, or
more
purchased.
Things.
So more things.
More things.
And I think along the same lines, now that I've thought about it for a couple nanoseconds, is a bigger building with more space for more programming, and as Jesse said, a much more vibrant, youthful children's section, because that's what you have to start hooking kids into, all these resources at a young age, and then they'll utilize them their whole life, and then they'll be continuing to be supporters of a library.
I love it. Get them young, train them right. I love it. Okay, well, I do want to thank both of you for joining me. I kind of neglected to say at the beginning that you are 2 of 4 guests for this evening. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you for all the work you do with the library, and come and see me when it's time for signatures.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's been delightful.
So now we're going to take a little break, show actually a little inside peek of some of the things that go on at the library. So while you enjoy this nice little video, we're going to do a little bit of rearranging. So be right back. Oh, okay. Microphone's off. Good.
I love a great suspense thriller. They're like candy to me. One I recently stayed up late to finish is Megan Miranda's Such a Quiet Place. The idyllic neighborhood of Hollow's Edge was shattered by the murders of Fiona and Brandon Truitt. It's a year and a half later and the community is still simmering. The residents feel stuck because they can't sell their houses, and every day they have to face the empty Truitt home. On top of that, tension remains from the trial where one of their own, Ruby Fletcher, was found guilty based on their testimonies. Can it get any worse? Oh yes, and it does, because now Ruby's back. With her conviction overturned, she walks back into the house she shared with Harper Nash. Harper is very nervous but can't turn Ruby away, especially knowing that she has nowhere else to go. Soon, suspicion starts to spread through the community, and it becomes apparent that nobody told the truth about what happened the night of the Truitt's murder. And when Harper starts getting threatening notes sent to her, she realizes she needs to get to the bottom of things before someone else becomes a victim. This one is full of tight-knit community secrets and relationships. It feels like a real-world neighborhood, and the characters are all very plausible in their actions. I would suggest it for fans of Leanne Moriarty or Mary Kubica.
and welcome to the Burlington Brief. I'm your host, Sydney Bowles.
And I'm your other host, Sarah Eshelman. We're here to bring you a no-nonsense,
Maybe a little nonsense,
guide to what's happening in Burlington, from major capital projects to schools to business and society.
Tune in every week for fresh interviews with people at the center of local news and conversations between two journalists who know what's up. So subscribe to the Burlington Brief to make sure you don't miss a single thing and get the best of local news delivered right to your ears.
We're back on. Welcome back! I love those dinosaurs. Those dinosaurs are just so awesome, and you have to go to the library and check them out. Wonder if they're available in the collection of things. Don't know. I think I'm gonna have to go to the library. But anyway, welcome back. We did a little bit of changing, so I would now like to welcome two additional guests. We had the trustees before, and they've mentioned the outstanding director, Michael Wick. Michael.
It's either.
Okay.
Either you like.
Sir Director.
No.
So, Michael, you are the director of the Burlington Public Library.
Yeah.
And Ginna Shahid. You are the president of the Friends of the Burlington Public Library.
Yes.
And you get paid by character in your title. No, I don't know. That would be cool.
Wouldn't be fun. Yeah.
So, welcome.
Thank you.
And, before, well, you've been on the show before. You actually
Yes.
came on during COVID, you know, with
Yeah.
the whole virtual
Was that
thing.
during COVID?
It was.
Oh, wow. Feels not that long ago. But
It does, but, it was the longest 2 weeks of my life. Anyway, so, Mike, you've been on before, but before tonight, I didn't realize how intricate the whole library operations are.
yeah.
So Jesse and Suzanne are trustees who work with you and then also work with your group. So I want to see how all of this fits together. So let's, backing up, first question. Where you grew up, how you came to the Burlington area, and what made you decide to get involved in libraries?
You want to answer first?
Sure. So I grew up in Attleboro, Massachusetts.
Okay,
And
not too far away.
No, and I loved our library. I spent a lot of time in our library. 30 years ago, this year, 30 years ago, my husband and I were looking for a community that had a nice mix of population, good upcoming school system, central to a lot of places, and a good library, and we chose Burlington. Our kids have been through the system, and I ended up, once the kids were older and really didn't need me around, I was looking
they still
for...
need you.
Well, yeah.
They just won't admit it.
No, exactly. I got sort of invited to become a little more active in the Friends. I didn't know who they were. A lot of people in Burlington don't know who the Friends are. And from there, I just stayed on and learned a lot from the people ahead of me and became the president. My thing is that a good, strong library leads to a healthy community. And we're well funded. Would you agree? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the Friends of the Library, what we do, and we're strictly a volunteer group, and we strictly fundraise, and everything we bring in goes back into the library.
Oh, I want to know more about that momentarily, but I want to finish your story. I don't want to mess up your introduction.
So, our thing is just, you can never have too strong a library.
And you can have never have too many friends.
That's right. There you go. And so we just, make the funds available to the library. We get excited about the projects that get proposed to us because it's going to make everything better. And so that's what we do.
We want to get a telescope. How can we fundraise for a telescope?
Exactly. Yeah, whatever it is.
I think that's a really good tagline, though. You can never have too many friends.
Yeah.
You should. That's
We'll
something
have
we
to
can
use that,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Put it on T-shirts.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Christina, remember that. You can never have too many friends.
Ginna, we will talk to you a little bit more about Friends in a minute, but I would like Mike to have his 15 minutes, 15 seconds of fame.
So I grew up in Indiana. Northeast Indiana. I moved to the Boston area because my girlfriend at the time, now wife, moved out here for graduate school. And so I moved along. I wasn't in graduate school. I worked in hospitality, ended up working as a head of the accounting department at a 4-star hotel downtown Boston. And so then I got burnt out in hospitality.
Understand. I would have gotten burnt out in, accounting.
Yeah. Well, it was a double whammy, I guess, for me. And so I was looking to go back to get my graduate degree. And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I decided that I had 2 choices that I was interested in. One was either to become a English high school teacher or a librarian. And I was a pretty good kid in high school, but I still gave my English teacher heck. And
I
so
was thinking I wouldn't want to grade all those essays.
well, I knew that karma was going to get me if I went into being a high school teacher, and so I became a librarian instead. And it's been a wonderful, I'm trying to think now how many years, 14 years that I've worked in the profession. Actually 14 since I've graduated, so it's probably been 17 years total.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That I've worked in libraries. And it's kind of an amalgam of 2 things. I wanted to do something to better the community.
Okay.
I wanted my job to be giving back in some way, and I wanted to work towards my strengths as well at the same time. And libraries have been a natural fit for that, because I think that they're a unique institution in our society. They're a unique institution in societies throughout the world. I mean, within the United States, we're very distinct in terms of having free public access libraries. You may go to other countries where it's a subscription-based library.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting.
I'm going to stay here.
Yeah. I've had many people come. They're recent immigrants, and they come into the library and they ask how much it is to get a library card, and when you tell them it's free, you should just see the joy on their face. It's a really cool experience. Yeah, it's a really cool experience. But so I've worked in Wellesley, and in terms of where I've worked in libraries, I started in Wellesley at the Wellesley Free Library. It was a wonderful learning experience, place to start in public libraries. Then I went into the Peabody Institute in Peabody. My first lesson in Peabody was how to pronounce Peabody.
And then you came here and had to learn how to pronounce Billerica.
Yeah, well.
Coming from Indiana, oh my gosh, all bets are off for all the different weird names in Massachusetts.
Well, it's just Ricka to some people, I guess. But so then I came here as the assistant director, and within a year, the previous director, Lori Hodgson, retired. And so I was selected for the position. I think it's a wonderful community. Cool. We're very blessed, as Ginna mentioned. The library is very well funded and supported by the community. I think that in times like these, where we're starting to see challenges to intellectual freedom, we have a community that strongly supports it. This is a wonderfully diverse community as well. It's a community that embraces its diversity. And so all around, I just think that it's an ideal place for me. And I think for many librarians, I think they'd love to work here.
Well, if you've been here for, not 14 years, but you've been here a while, hopefully you'll stick around for a while longer.
I think I will, if you'll have me.
Okay. You mentioned funding. So most of the funding is through the town because you are a town department. But then you are supplemented by the Friends.
Yes.
How do you figure out what gets paid for by your regular budget and what needs to be supplemented by the Friends?
Yeah.
Like something like the acquisition of books or the acquisition of a telescope or, the box thingy, the little locker thing.
The hold tub, yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's us.
Yeah, that's the Friends.
But, I mean, how do you decide?
Well, the way that the budget is constructed, there's certain things that are there. That have always been there. Well, and there's certain things that we're required to have represented in our budget by the state in order to receive grant funding as well from the state and to be certified as a library. So yes,
I didn't know you needed to be certified to be a library.
I think there's 2 communities in Massachusetts that aren't certified. And what an uncertified community means among libraries in the state is that they cannot go to another community and borrow materials from another community.
So kind of like the consortium, they're kicked out of the consortium.
They're kicked out of the state almost. I hate to say it. It's a pretty dire thing. So the wonderful thing about living in Massachusetts beyond other states, I mean Massachusetts kind of has a unique system in that if it's actually the general laws. Mass General Laws says that if you're a resident of Massachusetts and you live in a certified community, then you can go to any other certified community and access or check out books and their materials.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean all materials. Sometimes there's certain things like museum passes that might be limited to residents, because in some places museum passes are paid for by the Friends, and so it's limited to individuals within the community. We've shifted over the museum passes so that that's a part of our part of our municipal budget.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so there's some things that we've moved into the municipal budget because they are essential services. So I would say that basically a good rule of thumb when considering what the Friends would pay for or what the municipality would pay for is I look at what's an essential service. And so, essential services, books, those are essential services, and that's a part of what the state requires us to have 12% of our budget dedicated towards materials that circulate. Okay. So then, so the Friends don't really support the purchase of the circulating materials like books and museum passes. Programming is something that the Friends have always supported, and so that
kind of like the Lego Club or the guest speakers or something.
Or evening programs or adult programs, young adult programs. And so that was something that maybe in the 80s wasn't really considered an essential service. Right. For children's, maybe story times have always existed. Well, not always existed in libraries, but for a very long time.
They've been around.
It's been around. And so those kind of programs, though, still were supported by outside organizations. There was a Friends group that was just for the children's room for many, many years in Burlington. And then there was a distinct Friends organization for like general or adult programming support. And since then, they've
kind of smushed
become
together.
one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but before I digress too much, programming has become an essential service of libraries now. And so we've represented some of that by having it in the municipal budget. Okay. But our municipal budget doesn't represent all of the programming that we do. In fact, it really only represents about a third of the programming that we do. And what we've been doing is expanding that programming as well. So when we see opportunities and when we see something that we see as a need in our community, that's when we turn to the Friends, because we're funded annually by the municipality. We can't go back to the town and ask for more money.
Well, you could. They would probably laugh at you.
But I probably wouldn't be director here for that long if I was always going back to that well. And so, the Friends, as a volunteer-based organization that funds special projects for the library, that's really where that money comes from.
So in some instances, are the Friends financed projects kind of like a testing the waters type thing maybe? And then if it's successful, then you try eventually working it into your budget? Or am I just like making stuff up?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot that we kind of test the waters for, I guess. Programs, yes, we're always throwing something against the wall and seeing if it sticks. And
let's do a painting class. And nobody shows up. So we're not going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also, we do our community surveys where we're looking to what people want. That's kind of where it's a bit of a test market. Maybe this isn't the right time, whatever. But when it comes to actual projects that we're getting funded, these are well thought out projects that when we make our pitch to the Friends, It's through a series of conversations internally and then a series of conversations with the board before it comes to them to vote on it. So yeah, a lot of times it's pretty well considered by the time it gets to them. Because I think the biggest issue that you could have when you're going to a funding authority and asking for money is to kind of come out with a plan that's not really well
I'm not
out,
trying
right?
to, say
I
it's
get that.
just a whim, but something like, I know you said Storytime's been around forever, but hey, we'd really like to do a preschool Storytime. Friends, can you help? And then it's a huge success and you find out that it does become a need, then it's like, then you have the documentation to add it to your budget saying, look, we've been doing this for years, now we want to do something else. Can you fund this so we can explore the bigger picture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of when we've gone to the Friends and asked for additional funding, we did a author series that recently started. Now that during the time of COVID has pretty much become free because authors were finding that they were getting a lot of traction with online events. And so now we don't need to fly in a New York Times best-selling author, put them up at a hotel.
Well, you could, but you don't have to.
But now they don't want to do that. They want to do it online.
from home.
Yeah.
I don't feel like going for 3 days, so.
Yeah.
I would say sort of it tied to all that. There was a lot of pressure on Friends when I first joined to make sure we could come up with the funding to do these museum passes that we also felt were so important.
How long have you been a friend of the library?
A friend of the library. I didn't know it existed till about 10 years ago, so maybe 10 years. There was a lot of pressure to make sure we were going to have successful book sales so that we could buy these passes. When that was taken from us, when the town took that on because it was an essential service, you can't have a library without museum passes. That freed us up to work together to the same funding. We're still bringing in the money. What can we do? And so the next step was the programming, the children's programming we'd always been strong with. We've always supported the children's programming any way we can. But Marnie, who was the assistant director then, would come up with these great ideas. Let's do a science series. Let's do an author series. Let's do an art series. And that was the kind of thing that the Friends were excited about and said, yeah, that's where we come in.
Okay.
The community would benefit from these things. The community is supporting the Friends through all our fundraising. They'll love this. This will serve everybody.
Okay, speaking of fundraising, you mentioned the book sale.
Yes.
But I'm also, and I do want to talk about that, but I would also like to learn funding a author series or funding a science series or STEM's really big now. Does any of your fundraising focus on the topic or the subject that you're fundraising for?
We generally don't, except I can think of, so our fundraising comes from the book sales and other fundraising projects. Twice a year.
Okay.
Fall and spring.
Okay.
And then individual donations as well. We have people in the community who have been very generous with us and giving us chunks of money.
Oh, okay, cool. Wait, do you guys do the basket thing?
Oh, we did the raffle rouser. The basket thing we would help with, but that wasn't ours.
I'm going back.
And then COVID decimated that. But we just had a raffle rouser, which is like the baskets.
Okay.
And it was set up in the library for 3 weeks. And patrons came in, bought tickets. We did very well from that particular fundraiser. But so now I got to go back. What was the question I was answering before?
Topics or themes of fundraising.
So these individual donations. We got a lovely donation, and they said, well, we'd like it to go towards an art program. So we take the donation, we earmark it. This amount of funding we'll make sure it's always in the account till we've used it up. And when administration comes to us with a proposal for some art programs, we then use those funds in particular. Then we get other funds that are just, open-ended.
The unrestricted.
Yeah, and then that's us, and that's how we ended up doing the Holds Hub.
Oh, okay.
So, and this is a great story because it ties in everything.
Okay.
So Mike and administration came up with 3 things they wanted funded a couple of years ago, right? And they went to the trustees and presented all 3, came to the Friends and presented all 3 options, and I guess the town. I don't know. That part I don't know. And so we looked at the 3 projects and we thought, oh, well, that seems more like a trustees thing. So we'll take on this completely new idea that might not fly anywhere else. We'll take on the Holds Hub.
So there's a bigger risk, potentially.
Right, right. And we could afford it, and we'd gotten a very generous donation. And it really did seem to service a community that isn't always around, during open hours. So we funded the Holds Hub.
Cool.
And it was really fun to do because it was cutting edge, and it's like
Cutting
keeping
edge, not bleeding edge.
No, but keeping the library again. It's about about Burlington feeling cutting edge, doing the next step, leading the way, rather than just sitting back and doing what always gets done. Right.
So the book sales are huge. Money raising, money earning opportunity for the Friends to fund things for the library. How do you determine what gets sold at, because the library already has books for free, so why would I want to buy something? So how do you make, how do you make that distinction?
Well, you'd be surprised. Book lovers will not only check out a ton of books, but they'll buy a ton of books.
Yeah, exactly.
Come to my basement.
So it's about a 50-50 split. We get discards from the library. I'd say maybe a little less than 50. And then people cleaning out their libraries. I mean, we did well during COVID because people cleaned their houses and
they had to stare at them all the time.
And brought us all those books.
Cool.
And then we have a wonderful team of volunteers. They're the sorting group. And all they do when the books come in is they look at them, they categorize them,
So my physics book from like 1972 probably would not make it to the sale. I don't have a physics book from 1972.
But it gets recycled. So
a tree died for this book. Okay.
Yeah, and then what we don't sell at the book sale, we pass on to another reseller. So that nothing actually just really gets trashed. I mean, things that you just know nobody can use. Yes.
Like the physics book from 1972.
Or encyclopedias from the 60s. We do not want encyclopedias.
But I have a mint set from 1976. It still has the gold leaf. No, okay.
It's like China sets. Unfortunately, now you can't get rid of those either. They cost quite a bit when you bought them. But so the library does, have discards that we forward to the Friends. But the amount of donations that we get from the community is pretty amazing.
It really is.
There's collection days that the Friends do. So they do them typically about a week or 2 prior to the.
Because you probably don't want to store.
Right. That's a major issue.
Prior to the sales. But then also we ask if people are interested in donating, they can bring in a bag of books a day. And we have a cart that's set up near the exit in the circulation area. And they can just drop them off on a cart and then take off.
Now, do you ever find somebody donates a book potentially for the book sale, that you're like, oh my gosh, the library can't live without this?
Yeah.
We want to put it in our collection.
Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
You do that?
There's actually one of our young adult librarians, or not one of our young adult librarians, our young adult librarian will go through and she'll find materials that are of interest and create summer reading baskets. with the books. So prize baskets that she can raffle off for each individual who participates in reading a certain number of books gets a raffle ticket, and so then they're able to put their raffle tickets in for certain baskets, and some of those have materials that that we had found in donations. And also for the children's, same thing with the summer reading program. They'll find high quality, well loved books. Pretty much,
and in good shape.
Great shape. Yeah. There's been some stuff that I've seen that is brand new. But yeah, so that's been wonderful too, to be able to use that in a different way, in addition to adding them to the collection.
And then the other thing we do, once the books are ours to look at, we've collaborated with the Burlington Mall. We curate the Little Free Library. Right in front of Fogo de Chao is a Little Free Library.
Yeah, okay.
And so I'll go up into the sorting room and I'll look through and grab some young adults, some children, some adults, some biography, a whole range of books. Some of them are discards, and I know people must pull it out and go, oh, is this a library book? Do I need to return this?
It's got a sticker.
But no, it's marked as a discard. And then some of our nicer quality other books. So we try to keep that Little Free Library stocked. We also have a relationship with Books for Prisoners program.
Oh, tell me about that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
One of our vice presidents, who isn't with us anymore, had volunteered for this program. They like dictionaries, which don't sell at book sales, so we always...
encyclopedias? No.
No, I know. And we cannot, there are rules about what we cannot donate because they don't want them reading violent books, they don't want them reading whatever. But we have them come in and go through towards the end of the book sale. They can go through and pick whatever they want because everything else is going out to the reseller.
Okay.
So we make sure that books get in a lot of different places.
Neat.
Yeah.
Now, is that program still happening?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you determine which books are being discarded? Is it like nobody's taken it out for the last 20 years, so we're going to move it along?
Shorter term than that. 20 years is a long time in libraries. It depends upon the collection too. We may, say for a travel collection, we only keep the most recent 2 years of a travel guide.
Okay.
So that would go out more quickly. It'd be deaccessioned more quickly from the collection.
Okay.
Others, it can be for timeliness. Health and wellness resources. You don't want to be keeping something that's giving erroneous information or outdated information. But also, popular reading tends to be very much in the zeitgeist, and then it falls out.
So you get like 8 copies of the latest Stephen King book, and then say, okay,
and the community reads through them.
8 anymore. So these 6 are going to go to the book sale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so James Patterson books. There's maybe 360 people in the consortia who are holding for this book. So we'll buy 5 copies, but then once that's gone and done, we usually try and dedupe our collection, so that when you go through our collection, it's not just all James Patterson books. Because
all the same James Patterson.
Exactly.
If we didn't do that, you'd find that the P's would be quite voluminous. But yeah, so it's really I know that for some people it may have negative connotations, but really it's keeping the collection fresh, current, and desirable.
And I always wanted a copy of Surrender by Bono. You guys must have bought like 10 of those because I now have a nice hardcover copy for $2 because at the book sale, that's our high price is $2. So yeah, it's great.
When you mentioned the raffle, I'm thinking of some other nonprofit organizations that I'm involved in. So the library itself is a town department.
Right.
Friends.
We are a corporate. We are a 501c3.
Okay.
Nonprofit, tax-free, tax exempted.
Tax exempt.
Tax exempt. We have to file to run a raffle.
Okay.
501c3s.
Wondering if you were allowed to run a raffle or if there are restrictions of what you can and cannot do as a fundraising entity.
Absolute rules, and until when I became president, someone pointed out to me that we really should be registered to run these raffles. And we hadn't been because, times change, right?
Right.
So we learned the process of going to the town clerk, taking out our permit every year.
Okay.
We pay tax on a certain percentage to the state of Massachusetts.
Okay.
But we are a corporation. We are incorporated. In the 80s, we became incorporated, which gives us some legal protection. And we send out our reports. So after the fundraiser, we sent in our report. We had one item that was over $250 in value. So we actually had to tell the state who won that item, because that's one of those rules.
Okay. So when you're gathering items for a raffle, do you try not making the value 250? Like
We'd like to have one item. We'd like to have one item that's like we did the Roomba, and we had the Keurig, and there's always one item that somebody wants. And this particular item was an overnight stay at Foxwoods, and it was valued at $300.
Okay.
And so
gotta get the bidding fast.
Yes. So it matched, right? The whole, gaming, gaming and gaming. So yeah, then we fill in with a whole range of things, and it depends on who you're asking, whether what they want to donate. And then we had some wonderful handmade items. We had some beautiful quilts and a sweater and a floral arrangement. So we try to keep a really good range of items. Some of the
you want to appeal to every different audience.
And there are certain vendors in town that are really good about always donating. Market Basket, Wegmans, you know that you can count on them. Walk in, and they love giving back. Yeah, and they will happily
because there's all this cool stuff. But you know what?
Yeah,
we're out of time.
I know. I've been watching.
I never got to the collection of things. We're gonna have to have a sequel.
All right, sounds good.
I'm in.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for coming, and I also want to thank the trustees that were here earlier, Suzanne and Jesse, and both of you. So thank you so much. And I also want to thank everyone at home for tuning in this evening. I hope that you are ready for the next book sale. Although I think we just missed one. Nope, it's coming up.
The week before Halloween. So it starts on the 20th.
20th. Okay. Go to the library on the 20th. You can get a great deal on some previously loved books, and you can also check out some collections of things and find out all these other things that are available at your library. So thank you very much for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you around town. Good night.